right. Thank you for joining me today. It is Monday. It is the 12th of August. And last week when we came in, we talked about Alibaba and we talked about possibly the Chinese connection, right? Alibaba up today a little bit, 1%. But what's interesting is 10,899 shares, average 10-day volume, 11 million. So it's right in average of its 10-day volume. PDD, Temu, parent company, up and exceeded its 10-day average volume. And this little orange candle right here, weekly, signifies a weekly high closed doji. And if you look at the ratio between the length of this candle bar, it measures out and gives a price projection up into the 158 area, or at least to re-challenge it. It gives you the incentive to look that there may be a re-challenge into that 160 area. The problem with that particular candle pattern, we call it a high closed doji. I published it in a book 20 years ago. I can't believe it was 2004. But Candlestick and Pivot Point Trading Triggers on Amazon. There it is by John Wiley and Sons. A 1-to-1 risk-reward ratio. It may take between 4 to 6 weeks to get there. It could happen overnight. It may not happen at all. But needless to say, it definitely has improved relative strength. And one of the things that you can see is that the volume trend is starting to see a little basing improvement here. So you could also say maybe it's a trend line breakout, but I'm not in the mood of buying breakouts in this particular market. We look to buy pullbacks. And I don't have exposure to PDD. I am exposed with the long on Alibaba. So that was the one I gave out because of the fact we were continuously making higher lows. And now we should see if we can finally get a higher high. And if so, I'm talking 86.90 next stop for Alibaba. But that's not the real concern. The real concern is what are we looking at in a lot of the markets today? Not much happened volume-wise. In fact, Meta did, what was that, 9.3 million? It does 20 million in the last 10 days. So today's action was real super. ServiceNow does normally 1.3. It did 600,000. I can go on down the list, but it'll bore you. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes of what I'm looking at. I'm not a fan of, in this environment, if the consumers are tapped out, and everyone's been saying, and that's why Estee Lauder, Cosmetics, Ulta Beauty, e.l.f., Nike, Disney, all consumer stocks down. But here's one that is a consumer stock, Home Depot, that would have to do with either, again, the commercial side of builders, home improvement, paint, people redoing their houses, but with the increase in so many goods. Lemon Pledge, $9 a can. Silicone caulk, $13 to $15 a tube. The $50 for a gallon of paint. You know, if people are struggling for groceries, they don't feel too good about buying $30 plants that used to be $12.99. So again, I think sales are going to come in a little bit. Most importantly, if you think about, well, maybe Home Depot will be okay, and maybe they moved a lot of product. How did they move product? If people are buying plywood and lumber, did they get it through trucking delivery services through JB Hunt? JB Hunt's stock's not looking too good. Old Dominion Freight Line, that stock also not ripping to the upside. So once again, you know, if you take a look at Home Depot, and we'll find out tomorrow whether I'm right or wrong, but one of the things that we talked about in this week's, in my newsletter was real simple. Home Depot may report weaker sales, lower revenues, higher operating costs, and they could lower their end-of-year guidance. So that's why I would look at a bearish option trade, and what we were looking at today was, in fact, a bearish option trade on Home Depot. Now, that doesn't help the folks that will be watching this Monday night because the market is closed, but it is kind of an interesting scenario where maybe like and kind markets might not do well. Now, here's another interesting point. This is a bearish low closed doji pattern. How many showed up in the scans? Lennar, home builder, generated a potential sell signal. And this one's American Woodmark. They sell kitchen cabinets, and they white label them with Lowe's as well as Home Depot carries their product. You know, if they're not doing well, and today it really kind of ended on a sour note. Um, I'm surprised it actually is at this decent level, closer to its 52-week highs than its 52-week lows. But that could change in this environment, especially with Home Depot and their guidance. How many people are buying brand new kitchen cabinets at Home Depot or Lowe's? And so just looking at some other clues or peripheral markets, we may see some relative weakness. They're only looking for a $14 downside move in Home Depot. It wouldn't surprise me that we get back, maybe we could get on a bearish report a little bit less than that, 330-ish. The stock pattern does not look all that friendly. It ended up in a weekly sell, but last week was, again, a different week. Last week had technology weakness. It had big Japanese yen carry trade unwind, so a lot of hedge funds may have had to unload positions across the board in different holdings. So bottom line, Home Depot has been making or trying to make higher highs, and the indicators are suggesting weaker volume trends on momentum. This is a momentum volume indicator here. The relative strength's been weakening. Longer term, it's not, this again was a short-term blip due to the pandemic, of course. This was another trade, 386, melted right back down to 318. So rallies aren't holding up very well unless they come up with something really, really special, that they reinvented the wheel, or sales in maybe lawn and garden was doing better than expected. Seasonal was doing better. Maybe the commercial side perhaps could be doing better. My 2 cents is that it's not, and I think this is one that we'll find out. But we also have the producer price index coming out tomorrow, as well as CPI and then retail sales this week. So that might, the market may have a muted move based on Home Depot, but I'm still banking on looking at a couple things for this week. Namely, I'm still a fan on the side of China. FXI, let's take a look instead of buying one stock. This is this has been basing out, and I understand that it's all over the news that China's economy and consumer confidence is slipping, and but it's in the news, and they keep telling me this every day about how bad it is in China, and every day the Chinese related names don't go down. They may bounce off lows, but they don't make newer lows. And so if bad news won't make an index go down or stocks go down, what would good news finally do to this? So I think that would be a rationality that I think is important, that the more they hound about how bad China is, how come we're not seeing follow through weakness? Yes, consumer confidence is bad, but again, the People's Bank of China did lower interest rates, and they are doing positive measures to improve housing and consumer confidence, and that might be an interesting turnaround story. More importantly, we did have a company, Qualcomm, came out a few weeks back, QCOM. Now, QCOM got downgraded, I think was in the news today. It didn't really go very far, but Qualcomm was saying, hey, we're selling a lot of chips in China. They really want, their demand for technology is still insatiable appetite, and that is an important element, and I just thought I'd just review those with you, those key points there. As far as sell signals today, this is an end of day wrap up here. We still had over 150 new sell signals, and in fact, Old Dominion Freight Line, which is a trucking company, was one that generated a new low and a close below prior swing lows, or at least the prior day's lows, and a doji low. So this kind of opens the door on relative weakening volume pattern, as well as deteriorating relative strength to the S&P 500. So Old Dominion, it too may see some downside action. We clear this support here, which is around 184. Next stop, easily 170, 172-ish. And that we will be watching closely for some of the transportation that moves products that consumers would be buying at stores. If consumers aren't buying at stores, no one's ordering, no one's shipping, that means these guys aren't moving, and their freight rates are going to go down, and that's one thing we have to pay attention to. So overall, is the Fed going to raise or to lower or to hold? And the Fed is probably going to sit tight, and obviously for right now until we've become more data dependent, and we got to see what the inflation numbers are, but more importantly, the temperature of the consumer with retail sales. So I think to just avoid all of that, it makes sense. We had some pretty decent volume on FXI to begin with, 36 million shares. It does 32 million on a 10-day average basis. So there was some serious buying activity going on in FXI. And that's the big thing that I'm still focused on right there. As far as the overall market condition, I'm not ruling out. I never said that the rally would be long-lived. I think that the advanced decline work on the S&P 500 still demonstrates market internal weakness. We've not really seen a positive turn. We've worked off being oversold on stochastics. Now we're getting close to that 50% where sometimes the markets get overbought, they come down to 50%, and markets get overbought, they come down to 50%, and then they alleviate the overbought condition. Markets get oversold, they get up to 50%, and it alleviates that oversold for a short period of time. So 50% has always been a kind of an important number to watch after severe price moves to the downside or to the upside. Last but not least, here's the 10-day ATR. Higher elevated ATR or trading ranges is not indicative of market calmness, and bull markets are generally on calmer markets. Markets go up smooth and slowly with declining ATRs. Markets go down fast with rising ATRs. And until we actually change that ATR, the market is still vulnerable for another dip to the downside to test the lows. That's my 2 cents on the market. I hope that helped you out. And we'll be back after of course, tomorrow night, and we'll reflect what happened with Home Depot and as well as the producer price index. Have a great evening, everyone, and thanks for joining me.